All right, you're asking for it, so here it is. Listen to this.
I want you fucking laughing at. We partners pod, kid. You understand? We in here drinking, singing, all that shit, dog. We sweating, getting wet, all that.
All right, welcome to the 153rd episode of the Drinking Partners Podcast. Yes, this is our Marquise Pouncey episode because I thought of a great analogy. So, like our guests today, we don't get all of the, we don't get the commercials, the endorsements, all of that, like, maybe an AB or Roethlisberger or a Le'Veon, but we're integral to the team. We're integral to the Pittsburgh comedy scene. Our guest is integral to what's going on in the city of Pittsburgh and soon to be the state of Pennsylvania. I thought that's one of my better ones.
Nice.
Buzzy, you have to isolate that, save that. That's when you actually do homework for your job at home. Like, yo, let me put some shit together. I am half the hosting tandem, Ed Bailey. I'm joined, as always, with my co-host, Dave Bracey. Say what up to the people.
What's good with you people? We are the Drinking Partners, and if you're looking for us, you can find us on epicastnetwork.com/partnerspod. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Libsyn, and Google Play under Drinking Partners. You can find us on IG, Twitter, and Facebook at PartnersPod. And 153 episodes we've been asking y'all. We're going to continue to ask you, please hop on iTunes, rate and review. That's how we know what we're doing well. That's how we let others know that we're doing well. And that's how we continue to do well. So please hop on iTunes, rate and review.
Hey, you love us. You see us in public. You tell us you love us. Now, at the click of a button, please tell the internet. We're going to continue to say that every episode. As always, in lieu of rates and reviews, we do accept shots of Henny. You know what I mean? Shout out to Car Guy DJ and the Conways for setting that trend. Shout out to all the others who have seen me out in public and offered me shots of Hen to further that trend. You've made my life a lot better. You've made me a lot easier to deal with when I come home, because I go right to sleep. That's what he does. And as always, if you do leave a rating review, we can read your review on the podcast, much like what we'll read here by Swanson B. Review is called Just Discovered. Swanson B.
That still used to be the is that the truck, the frozen food truck that used to come through?
I don't know.
That was the TV dinners.
Yeah. Okay. That's
Hungry
what it is.
Man,
I knew it was something frozen out there.
Okay, so we got Hungry Man in the building. The spokesperson, he knew that. He knew that was Hungry Man from the gate. Swanson B. That's when you have one of them names like that too. That's like you kind of don't want to use your actual name, but you can't think of nothing creative. Just put your last name first. And kept it lowercase, but shout out to Swanson B. Just discovered these guys after living in Pittsburgh for 4 years. Good interviewers, good guys, and good info on comedy and drinking events in Pittsburgh. Tell your friends. That's good. So you captured
friends about us.
Go tell your friends about us. Thank you, Swanson B. That makes me feel like we're doing what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I mean, it ain't take you too long to find us. You've been here for 4 years. We've been on this doing it about 3 years now. You know what I mean? So, hey, shout out.
It was meant to be.
Yeah.
It was destined for us to find each other.
Nice.
So speaking of events, we're going to keep you up on what we're doing, starting off the 2018 in the right way with 2 epic nights of comedy. One, we're back downtown at Arcade on January 20th.
At the new Arcade Comedy
Theater.
Big stage.
Yeah, so we waited till them to get, the big stage, and we was like, all right, we're going to go. We're going to rock with it's been a long time in the making, but we finally got down at Arcade, so we're looking forward to that. And we're back at Contra Theater on January 27th. Again, we're going to be last Saturday of the month out at Contra, January 27th. Got Matt Light headlining. And then we'll be so it's the third Saturday of each month moving forward at Arcade. So we bringing you 2 epic night of comedies, one in the city, one outside of the city, so you can find us.
You can find us.
I
mean, you've been like, I don't want to go all the way out to Cranberry, whatever. That's cool. We downtown now. Every third Saturday of the month, we downtown at Arcade Comedy Theater, the big on the big stage, whatever. Check out, always BYOB, and we had our free beer this month. We got Mindful Brewing coming down, and I mean, hopefully they come through with a little bit of that BBC.
Well, the last bit that's still available. I'm trying to tuck that. Tuck that and run with it.
Got a little tucked keg over there. So we got Mindful coming in, and then on the 27th we have Shoe Brew coming through.
Brewski.
Shout out to them. Shout out to the Tanya Harding. That'll be the 27th, and we have food trucks down at the Contra Theater as always. BYOB, free beer, food trucks. Curbside Cocina will be down there slinging tacos, and it's $18 tickets, 2 shows, 7 o'clock and 9:30. So, I mean, you got 2 shows, the best beer, comedy, and food trucks in the city. Third and last Saturday of the month downtown at Arcade Comedy Theater and Compton Theater, man. We're everywhere.
Yeah, come out, man. Help us get this year started off right, man. Let's get 2017 started off in a much better fashion than we started 2018 started off in a much better fashion.
You already...
I'm still, my brain scrambled. You know what I mean? I got an excuse at all times. Anytime I fuck up, I got an excuse. You can't come at me. I'm still less than a year out of that.
I just started getting it right on the timeline. I mean, going from 2016 to 2017, and then they switched up a year.
Oh, you know, like, January, February, you always messing up the dates you write down.
Yeah.
Like it's not until March, technically, that the new year really starts, because I got a whole lot of documents that I got the wrong year on in the first quarter. So
until I get that refund check that I know it's a new year.
It's still 2017 till I get my W-2s. So I get that nice long square package in the mail that shows what I made. And I got to figure out what I'm getting back.
Yeah, I mean,
who claiming these kids? That's what we try to figure. This is the who claiming the kids chess game happening in many households right now. Who claiming the kids?
That
Auntie
algorithm.
claimed them last year, but she moved out of the school district. We got to figure out if they get the government funded for daycare. You know, it's a lot of moving parts going on. So
it's definitely an algorithm you got to put into place. You got to put your pieces in there, and then boop, 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 it comes out, and you're like, you got it.
Shout out to all the people who never had kids, who've claimed kids every year since 1998. Just claiming them.
Shout out to people with good credit that ain't got to hustle this. Oh man,
we got another event too, February 10th.
February 10th, man, down at the August Wilson Center. This is huge, man. We're super excited to be a part of this. We will be down live with Farm to Table at their Love of Pittsburgh event down at the August Wilson Center on February 10th. Between 3 and 7 p.m. Tickets are $25. Come out and support that. If you know Farm to Table, you know they're always looking at local food, local produce, getting you eating right and healthy and whatnot. Big supporters of the podcast, and we always love to be a part of their events. And we will be down there February 10th from 3 to 7 p.m. For the Love of Pittsburgh event.
For the love of Pittsburgh.
True. And there's a VIP option from 2 to 3 p.m. that day called Shared the Love. And this portion of the event will include attendees, will include your ability to give back $100 of the $150 ticket fee to organizations working on hunger in Western PA. These groups include Grow Pittsburgh, For Good Pittsburgh, 412 Food Rescue, Community Kitchen Pittsburgh, Black Urban Gardeners, Just Harvest, and North Hills Community Outreach. That's a lot of charity, man. A lot of charity. So come out for a good cause. And the programming will be led and directed by Black artists, chefs, farms, and other interested parties. So if you're looking to get involved in this, it's still open. You can get down there on that. They're asking speakers to do a talk, performance, or exhibit an installation, or anything that you'd like to highlight with your work. I mean, so if you fit that, that category, if you're a Black artist, chef, a farm, or an interested party, I mean, that's then hit up Farm the Table. And that again, this event takes place 3 to 7 p.m. February 10th. And hit them up if you're interested in that. And like I said, we will be down there. Doing a live performance. Yeah,
come out with us, have a good time for a good cause, man. That's just I don't have all the words that Dave has to sell it. Good time for a good cause. How often do you have a good time and support a good cause?
That's the thing I've loved about this, this entertainment, this comedy. I mean, the thing is that going out and drinking and having a good time for a good cause. I mean, there's charity events and I've been to some and they're a little bit more black tie and you usually got.
I'm not coming in with no tie.
I just ain't the type. I'm just I'm more of a laid back kind of. I just want to be comfortable. Everything I do is to get away from having to wear a suit and tie. So if I could come in,
but you put a scarf on.
A scarf,
you wear a scarf, but you still gotta maneuver that thing.
Yeah,
there's certain ways to wear it. You gotta maneuver that thing.
Yeah,
I like wearing
ties.
I like getting dressed up every now and then. I don't like getting dressed up with comedy though. I like to separate the two worlds. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I mean, there's a time and place to get dressed up and to be seen. You know, that's cool. But you know, like I said, if I can come in with a nice little Lucy, you know, some jeans or whatever, and
some
still
corduroys and a scarf,
corduroys and a scarf, and raise some money for a good time, I'm in it. I mean, so like I said, catch us at Farm the Table, February 10th. And if you're looking for tickets or more information, that's at farmthetable.pittsburgh.com.
Yeah, man, that's a great segue into our guest because last time we had him on, we're going on 2 years since we had him on, which is really cool to have him back. We were actually just moving into the realm of doing comedy for philanthropy. We had a discussion about how we came up in the world because we had got some events for a philanthropic cause, and you know he commended us on that. But I mean, we'll never be able to reach the heights that he has with philanthropy. This is his third time on the cast.
Third time on the podcast.
Yeah, what percentage you get? 153 divided by 3, like it's like 1.75% of your.
Of our,
that's what I mean. It's like
about 2% of all of the conversations we've had.
Oh, yeah, 2% of your content, and that's an honor for me.
And we're trying to get you into that 2% of the governor's staff of the United States. Is that what we're trying to do?
Well, that would be
Lieutenant Governor.
So is it lieutenant gubernatorial candidate? Like, what's the word?
Candidate for lieutenant governor.
Okay, that's an easier way to say it. Yeah. But I'm trying to sound like, I'm trying to sound like one of the muckety mucks. Like, I'm like, we got John Fetterman in the building. Say what up to the people.
Yeah, it's great to be back. Third time is the charm, and thanks for having me back. And it's great to be here, especially when all you do as a candidate in a statewide race is spend time driving around the state. So it's great to be home, and it's great to be home and in a friendly room. So
nice. So let's get into this. We had a lot of questions for folks. Around, which is super dope. Been seeing you all around. I mean, with the push, hell of a push. You have embraced social media and that whole you have this this youthful vibe of what you're doing. So shout out to that. First and foremost, what the hell is a lieutenant governor?
Sure. Well, it's like the vice president of Pennsylvania, basically.
Okay.
So if something happens to the governor, you take over. If the governor, say, is appointed by the president for like a cabinet post, you take over. It doesn't have to be like a health crisis or anything like that. And then what's really significant about it also is that you are chairman of the parole board. And you have a lot of influence and say when it comes to that. Really the thing that to me, other than the pardons, the pardons is the ability to advocate for things, the ability to take issues that you care about, and it's a statewide platform. And traditionally, the office hasn't been fully utilized or valued the way I think it should be, the way I think it could be. And I think it's an outstanding platform to promote progressive, to promote the issues that I care about.
Why do you think it has been underutilized or underpublicized for real? Like, this is the first time I've ever heard of that office. And
we're into politics. I love politics. And I was just like, I was driving in with my fiance. She was like, I'm kind of embarrassed to ask this, but like, what does the lieutenant governor do? And I'm like, she's like, is it a joint ticket? Because with the president, you have a joint ticket.
We're unique in that sense, is that we're one of the few states where it is a separate ticket, at least in the primary. The presidential candidate who wins picks his or her candidate for vice president. In many states, the governor, he or she will pick, but in Pennsylvania, it's actually a separate candidate, separate ticket, and then whoever wins lieutenant governor and whoever wins the Democratic primary for governor, you guys, whatever genders they are, they're fused together as the Democratic and Republican ticket. Okay. So they're joined. We're joined at the hip. Whoever wins on the November ballot, but in the primary, you have different candidates for both. Although Governor Wolf is not being contested, for the Democratic side.
So what is the advantage of having a separate ticket versus like in other states?
There isn't. I'm asked. In fact, there's been a push to say let the governor pick their candidate, and that's completely reasonable, especially if you're in the second term of your potential governorship. Your term limited out. This is your last term. I do believe you should be able to pick. So, and I think Pennsylvania ultimately will move to that, to the fact that I know there's legislation now that's being talked about where they're going to change it so that the governor or the governor candidate can pick his or her running mate.
So have you seen an example of where like the lieutenant governor in a state where there's on separate tickets where the lieutenant governor, if they had to be moved into the position, there would be a dynamic shift in policy or how the state would be run?
It's an important office, and in the current occupant of the lieutenant governor's office has more of an adversarial, non-cooperative relationship with the current governor. He, in my opinion, isn't as forward and progressive as I think they should be, or at least as I am, and again has gotten into some issues that you can look up and read about if you're really interested. I'm not going to make that an issue, but there's some allegations out there in terms of some conduct. So, but for me, the campaign that we're running, it's about pro this, pro that. This is what we're about, not what Lieutenant Governor Stack may or may not have done. It's just about, to me, reinventing the office and turning it into a force of advocacy and good and progressive values in PA.
Nice. So diversity, huge. Brandon Johnson, he asked, what is the initiative about having a diverse staff? So, I mean, is that a thing that you're interested in? And if so, how do you plan on implementing that? Because I had read somewhere that the Democratic Party had just, hired one of the first black senior staff, or there's very few in that or whatever. So while you're seeing a large push in minority communities and whatnot, voting wise and changing these elections, when you look at say Alabama just now, the demographic that helped get Doug Jones in there or whatever, but when you look at senior staffing and the influential folks at the top, it's still pretty vanilla at the top and homogeneous. So, in your office, how do you plan on promoting that, or even within the party, the Democratic Party?
Yeah, well, I mean, I come from an overwhelming community of color. It's about 80% African American. And whether I win this race and go on to win others, or whether I don't, again, my proudest professional honor will be being elected mayor there 4 terms. So that has always meant the world to me, because I think of the signal that it sends is in terms of diversity in staff. I mean, these are important issues, and I think there's an awareness now that there wasn't earlier, and it has to get better. And I think people, need to always, embrace the Rooney Rule, so to speak, where you always want to make sure you're making these opportunities and options available to everybody. So.
Now, coming from Braddock, being the mayor of Braddock, have you seen that as being something that helps, or is there a stigma when others look at you?
No, there's absolutely no stigma, and I think people there are a lot of older folks that may have moved out or may have abandoned the town that want to see it succeed, that they remember the good old days, and they're rooting for the town, and in our current incarnations, the exposure and the visibility. So it's only an asset. It's my home. It's where I live, and all 3 of my children were born. So it's something that I've embraced, and if somebody would want to hold that against me, then I can't help that. But it certainly hasn't been anything that I've been aware of personally. So.
Well, no, because where I'm coming from is, I guess, you look at Braddock being a smaller town in the larger state of Pennsylvania, now running for a state position. Mm-hmm. I know in many walks of life, if you try to advance, people will look at, all right, well, okay, you have experience, but your experience is only here. I think how do you handle this larger scale?
I mean, I think it's actually much more difficult to be a small town mayor than a larger one, because you have layers and layers of staff, layers and layers of bureaucracy, and you have all of this momentum going forward. Right. Whereas, when you're a community that has lost as much as we have and is facing as many issues as we have, you have to be creative. You have to create change. You have to create positive outcomes, and resources are always going to be limited. You don't have a urban redevelopment authority to say, okay, we're going to do this now, or we're going to do that. It's about finding partnerships. It's about creating public safety from a police department that's underpaid and it's difficult to attract and retain officers. It's about bringing services into a community. It's about moving a town forward that lost 90% of its population. So if you think of an issue that's at the forefront of the Democratic Party's debate, what we're talking about as a party, we've had direct hands-on experience doing that in a way that I can't think of really anyone else that can say that, whether that's, access to healthcare, whether that's police violence, whether that's gun violence, whether that's criminal justice reform, whether that's school to prison pipeline, whether that's just the enormous inequality that exists, structurally in our society. All of these issues have converged and take place in communities like Braddock and all across Western Pennsylvania and Pennsylvania. And that has always been at the center of my campaign is that these places matter. The people that live there matter, and they deserve better than just hoping to manage the decline. And that's really been my tagline.
So what are some of the, you're moving from, because a large part of your career has been the hands-on. And I know that because I know friends and family who, speak highly of you, and they say, hey, John's actually out here on the streets. Like we see him, he's like, he's really be on these streets. Like I was hanging out with him on the block a little while ago. Yeah, I mean, like he's visible.
Hold on, no.
Yeah.
I mean, in the middle of a race.
No, I mean, but like you can be seen walking around Braddock, like you're actually approachable in this. Yeah, I mean,
well, not only that is that our initiatives we help feed and clothe people 6 days a week. I have daily conversations with my police chief on public safety and another issue. I mean, like it is very hands-on with stuff, and it's all of those issues and all those things are scalable, and I'm proud of the relationships that I have, in and around, and I'm proud of the level of awareness that we've helped bring to the condition of a lot of these communities, and whether it's opioids or whether it's, you name it. If we're talking about it as a party, we've dealt with it, and I think in most cases successfully pushed back and made it a better place in town. And really, it's about getting a larger platform and championing for these things statewide. I'll give you another example. It's been 5 below here for the last 10 days.
What does Fetterman plan to do about this weather?
Well, yeah, can't you
out here in shorts? He ain't doing the damn thing.
We in negative degrees right now. We overdrafted the weather account. Right? We are weather anxious people.
As much as I wish I could, I can't change the weather. But what we can do is, and what we did do in Braddock was eliminate people having their gas shut off for non-payment.
That is, and people are still getting cut off in the middle of the winter.
Yeah.
I thought that was illegal.
No,
I thought that was illegal.
Yeah, and in fact, what I discovered 5 years ago is that there were households where they were using their stove, they were using rickety old space heaters, they were using dangerous ways to have heat. I mean, cable TV can be considered a luxury, perhaps, but heat is as essential as food when it's 5 degrees, below zero out. And I was appalled. And what I did is we reached out to People's Gas, and we created this dynamic back and forth hotline where it's like, hey, I'm at this address. They have their gas cut off, and they would send someone out immediately to restore it, get it turned back on, and they would work to get the bill retired. And what we found is that you'd have a woman with 2 or 3 kids living there that owed $280 or something, and it's like, no, they didn't want that, and from a moral perspective, we as a society can't allow that. So every year, in the last 5 years, they would email me a list in early October saying, these addresses, John, don't have gas service established, and we would go around and do welfare checks to make sure are people living there, et cetera, et cetera. And this past October was the first time in 5 years where they said, we don't have anyone to send you. Everyone's been reconnected. Awesome. Everyone has that. And from a scalable perspective, that's important. And if you can scale that up, I mean, no one should be going out with heat right now because it creates situations where these fires, occur. Pipes free. I mean, it's just one of those things. To me, if you live in a cold climate, heat is a basic fundamental civil right, and we need to work as a society to make sure that no one goes without heat during the winter. And that's something that we were able to do just by reaching out and working.
So how do you implement something like that statewide? Because again, a lot of that comes from you as a person.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, some of it, again, I think it's just building an awareness, and that's what the office of Lieutenant,
people know though.
Yeah, well, people know, but saying, hey, it's like, look, this is what we.
Some of us don't, because like I said, we were under the good, like that it was illegal. You know what I mean? Like when I read an article about that and I heard it was cut off, I was like, wait a second, I thought that, because I know for a fact at some point it was illegal to shut it off, and now it's not.
Yeah, and there's also the misperception that, they're like, well, if they got cut off, they probably owe $5,000 or they're just gaming the system. It's like, like you have like $270 or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, and then they add the $50 connection fee and whatever. And it's like, if you're a single mom working, you can't come up with that kind of money. And you need heat. And it forces people into dangerous situations, whether it's carbon monoxide or the possibility of a fire or your pipes freezing. And children, you just shouldn't live like that. Not in this society. So
I've slept with the stove on before. Like
Yeah.
that's dangerous as fuck. Like all four flight, the little pilots on, got the oven open, like that, and that costs you more money. Like you're already in a negative on this side, and then that's crazy.
Yeah, and again, if as lieutenant governor, you can speak to the entire state, saying, I would like to work with every major utility across the state to implement these kind of programs where we hopefully 5 years from now can say no Pennsylvania home, that is made a good faith effort to maintain, would go without heat and under these same kind of things. And it's just a matter of saying, hey, this is the gas companies know exactly who is connected and who isn't. And just a matter of finding the resources to do these kind of welfare checks. And when you see children perish in these horrible house fires, it's heartbreaking, and that needs to stop, because we as a society should all agree that you need heat. Yeah. When you live in a cold climate like we do.
So kind of a two-part question. State rights, huge in news right now, because you got Sessions out here talking about, he's trying to enforce marijuana laws federally. States are saying, hey, we want to legalize it. That's our right to do so. So, being in this position, in a statewide position, how can you protect, or enforce? How does the state enforce state rights? You know what I mean? Like if I go out and I get a card for medical marijuana, do I have to look over my shoulder? You know what I mean? In the state of Pennsylvania?
You do now if you want to buy a gun. I don't know if you're aware of this, but if you go and register for medical marijuana, you can't buy any more firearms. And I think it's illegal to carry or have a firearm.
Even so, if you're already registered,
I believe
you can keep the guns you have, but you can't purchase any more. You got to get rid of the ones you have.
Because it's technically marijuana. It's absurd. It's considered a Title I substance federally, and it's classified the same as heroin or some of these other drugs, and it's insane. And that's the way the law is being interpreted in Pennsylvania, and that of course needs to change. And with respects to as you mentioned, marijuana. When I ran for the Senate in 2016, I was the only candidate nationally to be for full legalization of marijuana. And it was because why don't we take it out of the shadows? B, in 40 years, there's been 0 overdose deaths. C, the law is applied in a racially unjust manner. When you look at the arrests, you look at the incarceration rates, you look at the communities that are disproportionately impacted, and we need the money, quite frankly, too.
They're bringing in
which is why they selling weed to begin with.
Billions.
Exactly. Like I don't know. In 2018, I don't know why we're arguing about marijuana the way we are birth control or basic science. I mean, and especially when you see like, hey, how's that opioid thing working out for you guys? I mean, it's just, and really, OxyContin it's pharmaceuticalized heroin, prescribe it by the millions, and oh my gosh, people are dying. They are getting addicted. But again, you look at marijuana and you look at the fact that we now finally just have it available legally, medically here in Pennsylvania.
Right.
What could have that done to curb the opioid epidemic that's ravaging Pennsylvania if that was available 20 years ago the way it should be? Legalize it. Why are we arguing about it? And that goes for hemp cultivation as well too. This is the first time this year where 1,000 acres or 100 acres, excuse me, are going to be planted of hemp and commercial hemp. And people, again, reefer madness, like, oh my God, they're growing. It's like, again, anyone knows it's an agricultural product. There's no, it's not like marijuana that you would smoke. And so make it legal and take it out of the shadows, tax it, put it towards public education, put it towards a housing fund or affordable housing. I mean, whatever society wants. And also the people that are in jail right now for crimes involving marijuana, get them out of jail. This is insane. It's absurd, and their records are damaged. I mean, it's such a zero-sum game. And the people that are losing, it needs to stop.
Yeah, and I think they and I are on the same page. I mean, hearing about the responsibilities of a lieutenant governor and then hearing about what you were saying. So how large is that? As far as your campaign, how present is that specific mindset in your campaign?
I'm front and center in it. In fact, we did a press release saying that we were going to the cannabis booth at the farm show. So I mean, like we talk about it openly. As I said, we were the only candidate in the entire country that was for full. My expression is, let's go full Colorado in Pennsylvania. So it's something that I'm proud to talk about. It's something that needs to happen, and I don't know why it doesn't. I don't know why people can sit there with a beer and argue with you why marijuana shouldn't be illegal.
So how much pushback do you get statewide from the quote unquote good old boys
I haven't gotten any really, because I think people understand it's like, it's got to change.
Yeah.
And when you see how disastrously it's worked out with opioids, I mean, just because it comes from a doctor doesn't mean that it can't take you down the wrong path. And again, now we don't even worry about heroin. It's fentanyl and carfentanil, which is the elephant tranquilizer.
Out here
I mean,
now.
if somebody would have thought one day people would be trafficking in elephant. I mean, and also, where do you go from there? What's the next step beyond elephant tranquilizer?
Whatever the fuck they was using in Jurassic Park.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like, and the fallout is everywhere. Most recently, that precious little girl in McKees Rocks, the 1-year-old that came in contact with the carfentanil and died. And the headlines get worse and worse and more heartbreaking. And it's like and we're arguing about fucking marijuana. It doesn't make any sense.
And our institutions are like the largest peddlers of these drugs. Like, I was in the hospital last year, and they are like the biggest drug dealers. Like, they come in, they have a computer outside of your room, and they ask you if you're feeling all right, if you need a pill, but they're just selling you the pill. Like, you say, yeah, they go clickety clack 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 and put in the charge before you get the pill. Like, I realized that. I'm like, damn, every time she asked me if I need a painkiller or something, she'd go out to the hallway and do something and then come back with it. They were charging me for every fucking pill.
Well,
like,
it's like at the end of the day, marijuana isn't something that we should be arguing about. No. It should be legal, and it should be accessible, and it should be and the lives that have been compromised or damaged. Again, the people shouldn't be in jail. I mean, it has to change, and I think it will change. But unfortunately, you're looking at a time frame that the next 5 to 10 years, hopefully. And now you have an attorney general that is going to go after. I mean, look at that. I mean, we literally have tens of thousands of people overdosing every year, dying, and he's worried about someone sipping a little weed. It's insane.
So moving on to next, because we have so much going on. Equality in schools, huge thing. I mean, nationwide. I personally have worked in a lot of different school systems and whatnot. Some schools can't afford books.
You saw in Baltimore where the kids had to go to school and coats
Yeah.
because
Yeah, 'cause the heat was cut
the
off.
heat was broken.
that
You know,
happened.
and
they
Shout
were
out
built.
to
They're
Shaw High School in
building.
East Cleveland. That happened to us several times.
Yeah, they're building. They're building prisons and detention centers in that
and
area.
they're
but-
giving $1.4 trillion in tax cuts to the super wealthy. It's like society has money for the things that they want, and they don't. They claim that they cry poor for things like that they don't. And it's like, we want tax cuts for the super wealthy. Hey, we just added $1.4 trillion to the deficit to make that happen. But when it comes to other things, you know, it's like, oh, we can't afford that, or oh, we can't afford to pay living wage. Oh, we can't afford to invest in education and make college tuition affordable or free at state schools. And to your point, like, I mean, we're part of Woodland Hills, and I really, really helped lead the charge when a lot of those videos started coming to light. How they would just literally just beat the hell out of these kids, and you see this video where this kid's literally sitting here like I am in the office in a chair, and the cop walks in and starts wailing on him and puts him in a headlock, throws him on the ground, and then the then principal is just like gets in on the act too, and all this kid was doing is sitting there.
Oh yeah, I've witnessed that. I mean, I've had to be the guy to come in and step in and tell other adults, like, you've crossed this line. Yeah. I mean, it happens quite a bit. I mean,
well, and I mean, I have a unique connection to that because I started in Braddock teaching GED classes to the same young people that were expelled or kicked out, or they were the bad seeds, quote unquote, and I've never had an issue. I never had to raise my voice. And it's like, if you give respect, you get respect. And in all these videos, these kids aren't doing anything, you know, and if you, as a parent, and I'm a parent to 3 children, if you can't have empathy for a kid in a chokehold, for no reason, you know, picture your own kid's face and how you would feel. And I'm always amazed at the restraint these parents exhibit. If I saw my son in a chokehold by a principal or a cop at a school, I mean, they'd have to restrain me, you know.
I'd be like Liam Nelson.
You know,
I'd be Liam Nelson from Taken.
Yeah.
I'd
I'd be like Liam Neeson in Taken. Yeah, I'd be like, you know,
I
it's like,
will find you.
come in there and just, you know. So it's.
I've been waiting to make that phone call. Like, I have
well, he's got a new.
I got a skill set.
Now he's on a train, the commuter or whatever, where he's kicking ass. But my point is that, you know, like, and it's unacceptable. And the fact that they were okay with that, and the fact that they tried to let that slide until we made such an uproar. And I give credit to Attorney Todd Hollis, who represents a lot of these kids, where it's just like, this isn't acceptable. It'll never be acceptable. And you can't continue on with these people in place. And I reached out to my friend who's the Auditor General, PA, Eugene DePasquale, and he agreed to do an audit to make sure that the school is spending the resources and directing it appropriately, and that's been underway. So, because it's unacceptable.
So, in your role as Lieutenant Governor, what are some of the things? I mean, what are some of the initiatives that you can bring? You know, on a statewide level.
I'll give you another example. When I was in Harrisburg yesterday and the day before, you see signs everywhere for UPMC Pinnacle because they just bought the major health system in Central PA, and UPMC is literally going to take over Pennsylvania healthcare. Like, I'd say the next 5 to 10 years.
No laws to govern that.
Yeah, well, and I'm just here to say is that, look, I've been on the business end of what UPMC can do to a community when they're the only game in town, when our hospital closed.
Yeah.
And being, again, having a statewide platform to say, this is a problem, this has to be taken care of, this has to be contained before they're responsible for 90% of the health care that goes on in Pennsylvania, and we don't have any place to go or any recourse.
So as it stands, there are no laws to legislate. Like,
as far as I'm aware, I mean, they're literally gobbling up every healthcare system, and they're working their way east. And when I'm talking to audiences across Pennsylvania, that's one of the questions I ask. I'm like, have you heard of UPMC? Because if the answer is no, I tell them you will in the next 2 years, because they're probably going to buy your hospital system. Yeah. And they own Erie, they have Johnstown, Altoona, they have my parents' health system in the York Harrisburg area, and they're moving east.
That's crazy. Yeah. Even in the banking industry, like for example, with PNC, when they purchased National City, I don't know if any of our listeners remember National City, but they had to sell off a certain subset of branches because they can't have but so much market share. And I feel like,
I mean, imagine if
Highmark
if Highmark didn't step in to rescue the Allegheny Hospital network, the only hospitals in
Shout
West
out to
would
Allegheny Health.
would be UPMC. That would, and when you are the only person that sells a service, especially one that you need to live,
You can price it.
You can spend whatever, you can charge whatever you want, and it's a dangerous precedent because while they build and manage outstanding hospitals, they behave as a competitive, predatory kind of operation, and they take no prisoners in that regard. And so from my perspective, the lessons that I've learned in Braddock, that scales directly up because they're doing the same thing statewide as that they attempted to do, they did do in my community and what they did trying to do in Allegheny County.
It's funny, like I see it kind of building up. Like you got to stay in step with UPMC. They're like they're fighting the North Braddock level, and now they're moving up to state. And it's like I got to go to state too.
Well,
we got to up the ante. Like,
I mean, and also, it should be noted they are the state's largest employer now. So they wield an enormous amount of clout and an enormous amount of influence, and they could use it exclusively for good, but I've seen the other side, and they unfortunately don't.
Oh well, I worked with UPMC. I remember working. I'm now banned from working for UPMC for reasons.
Get Dave the fuck out of your hospital.
For reasons.
Don't let Dave
but like,
work in your hospitals.
I was like, it's a nonprofit organization. But I remember like there was the year that I worked there, or whatever. They had brought in about $500 million in profits. It was like $500 million in profits, but they're a nonprofit, and we didn't see any of those raises.
Yeah, well,
I mean the ground level, the employees.
And again, that's another thing that where it's like I think it's by 2021 they've pledged to pay their workers a minimum of $15 an hour living wage.
2021?
Yeah, that's
we got 15.
You know how many people that's in the hospital gonna be dead by then?
And again, stop and consider this, guys. The CEO pays himself $7 million a year. Like how? Like, and again, this isn't personal to Mr. Ramos.
On a nonprofit organization.
How? If you're bringing home $7 million a year, I could not sleep at night knowing that I'm not paying everyone that works, no matter from the laundry room all the way up to the whatever. Like I would want my employees that have made me and placed me in the position that I'm in to be able to take care of them and themselves.
You can let go 6 of those mills and still be very comfy.
That's my point.
Like
it's. And that's where we're at with that, and so people, and that's another lesson I say. It's like, look, all of these things that we've done can scale, and I've seen it firsthand. And having a statewide platform, it's invaluable because from my perspective, advocating for a lot of these things, it's great to do it as a mayor of a small town, but when you're the lieutenant governor, it just reaches a lot more people.
So in this in your campaign now, like how much of it is just research and just understanding? Because I feel like if I had someone campaigning in my city who was not from my city, but I saw that he was trying to learn my city as opposed to trying to win my city, like I would be more invested in that type of candidate.
Yeah, well, I mean, we did really well when we ran for Senate. We of course didn't win, but we got 20% of the vote statewide, and we were outspent 15-1. I mean, and we won Allegheny County by double digits. So we got the message out and through social media, like what you guys do, and just getting the word out and making it available. And the reality is, though, you do have to raise money. That's one of the downsides of politics is that there is too much money in politics, and that has to change. But in the meantime, it really comes out to, and a lot of the issues are universal, though. The same issues that are troubling, community, say, in Western Pennsylvania are often the same issues that are troubling a community in, outside of Philly or in Northwest Pennsylvania. I mean, so I've always only found a really great reception and the message resonating, and those that we're able to reach, almost invariably want to support that message.
So you touched on it, and it leads into a question. Because personally, I want to get back into some more of the audience questions at some point. But personally, my biggest things in candidates from the ground up is, the two for me is campaign reform. How you are funded, and also term limits. You have folks that are lifelong politicians, and they spend less time actually doing a job and more time just perpetually campaigning. So for me, I've always felt very strongly about those two issues. Where do you stand on those? How are you funded? Where do you stand on campaign reform and term limits?
Sure. Well, the thing with where we're funded, we're almost exclusively online. Our average donation was $40. So and that's about as democratic as it gets, as far as I'm concerned.
People don't know what democracy even means.
And I was proud to say the same thing for our Senate race too. And in fact, we raise the overwhelming majority of our money online through small dollar donations. And that's something that I'm proud of. And I would say that was the most important distinction that the Sanders campaign demonstrated in 2016, whereas you literally can run for president. And actually, he raised more money than anybody through a large base of donors. In less than 6 weeks, we amassed 3,000 donors across, which is an outstanding sum, particularly for an office that's not top of the ticket like lieutenant governor. And our strength comes from a lot of people, not from one or two people that write, a check for, there's a candidate that's running for lieutenant governor on the Republican side, but he loaned himself $500,000. It's like, yeah, you have more money than I do, but you just loaned yourself $500,000. And I'll take the 3,000 people that have my back that can give me $30 or $40 versus being able to write yourself a check for $500,000.
You can do that,
most candidates, and that's, when you're looking at this tell-all or whatever with the Trump or whatever, they were saying how he didn't really invest his own money into his campaign until late in the game when they were they had to convince him look.
When it comes to campaign money in politics, I tell people, look, relax, because it's much worse than you think.
Yeah.
And
easily
on the federal level, especially because there are no limits, and there's dark money, and with dark money, they don't even have to tell you where it's coming from, and it can be. It can be from a foreign. It's scary, and if you can give me $5,000 and you can give me $50, you're my new best friend, and not so much, and that's not the way it should be. That's not democracy, So that has to change. And in terms of term limits, absolutely, it's if you're not in it for the greater good, then you really owe it to yourself to get out, And I've always made that pledge, as mayor. The second I become jaded, the second I become cynical, the second I can say that I'm not doing everything I can to make it better, it's you got to pull the ripcord.
It right now, it's like you're saying, it's more of a voluntary thing. What are some things that people can do, or how do people get that movement started to push? Because it's so hard because we're in the system. It's we basically at this point have to rely on Congress to vote against themselves.
Yeah,
and be hey,
absolutely.
I'm going to vote myself short. Yeah, how does the average American?
It's tough, and I'll tell you something even more depressing. In the spring primary of last year in 2017, the turnout in Allegheny County was 17%. 17, so more than 8 out of 10 people didn't even bother to vote for an election. And this is after Trump.
Yeah.
You would think that he would have activated a lot of, holy shit moments, and people are going to get out to the polls. And more than 8 out of 10 people are like, meh, whatever.
Yeah.
And that's what's discouraging, because a low information voter is a Republican's best friend, where they stay home, and or they respond to what they see on Fox News and whatever, and we end up in these silly arguments about birth control or marijuana or treating dreamers with dignity and respect and giving them a pathway to citizenship.
Is there something because I don't know if it's a federal or a state. I imagine it's more state because different states vote different times or whatever. Is there something that say PA can do? Because a lot of the voter suppression and thing I'm looking at, I'm like, you shouldn't have to take a day off to vote.
No, that should be. When I ran for Senate too, it's why isn't Election Day a holiday?
It should be a holiday, and it should be automatic registration. There are whole countries that automatically renew registration. You don't have to go out and register to vote.
I couldn't agree more.
So is there something that can be done on a state level, and something that you can do, or at least push in
by
your
myself
position.
as lieutenant governor, there's nothing I can do because the legislature through gerrymandering is hyper
that's a whole
Republican. Yeah, we could talk for hours about it's hyper gerrymandered, but you can raise attention to it and you can call it out. And what is like the most sacred and solemn and instrumental thing of a democracy is voting, and we in this country don't even give you the day off to go do it. And it's like, how can you really be serious about democracy when you can't even make it a holiday so people, especially the ones that like work on an hourly, really, they need that. So it's absurd. And if you're opposed to any of those measures, it's because the people that would vote are the ones that aren't going to be voting for you. And to me, if you can't win, the only way you can win is cheating, then why you should start asking yourself, why do I believe these things if they're not supported by the true democratic will of people?
So, and we kind of touched on this last time you were here, and I just want to represent the question. Like, do you think government is moving in the direction of maybe mirroring your type of outlook as far as how you want to reach the people, how you should look at the actual job? Because I think, like, and we talked about hospitals, I think hospitals are the same way, where it's like, all right, these are supposed to be services, you're supposed to be for the people, and all that, but they are businesses largely. Like, hospitals are a business, politics is a business, nothing like
no one can ever say again, we can't afford to do X, because in December, they just wrote themselves a check for $1.4 trillion to give the largest tax cut since the 1980s to the people that are already have already accrued the overwhelming majority of wealth in our communities. And when you say, well, we can't afford universal health care, no, that's not true. We can. We haven't, no, we can't afford reduced or free state tuition. Yes, we can. I mean, all these things that people say, oh, well, how are you going to pay for it? It's like, well, we just paid for $1.4 trillion in a tax cut no one needed, and the only people that wanted it were the hyper greedy and the hyper wealthy that are already, so far ahead of their average person that works, paycheck to paycheck.
So do you? I was going to say, do you see more of an influx of individuals who want to fight against the establishment, or do you see more?
I see the tribalism really kind of setting in, where it's like, I'm Republican and I'm going to try to, I'm going to hold my nose, but it's like like you saw the race in Alabama.
Yeah, I was just about to say.
like how awful of a human being did Roy Moore have to be to finally allow a Democrat to win? I mean,
and in Alabama,
seriously, this is a cat that was banned from the mall for trolling teenage girls as a 30-something assistant district attorney. Like, that is amazing. And again, Doug Jones only won by, I think, less than 2%.
Yeah, he was a terrible individual. He's been terrible for quite some time. Everybody knew that he was terrible. And then when it came out on a national scale, he still almost
he was like,
won.
I wasn't terrible.
Yeah, but he's still
nigga, we got paperwork. You were terrible, fam.
Right.
You can't go into Forever 21. Like, you can't go in there.
And that's
I used to ask these girls' mothers' permission before I went after the 16-year-old. I mean, horrible, like a truly horrible individual, and he only lost by less than 2%. And against a guy that, by all accounts, is a decent guy and has led a good life. And it's like, what does that say about how entrenched tribalism is in the political process?
He had the audacity to not accept defeat. And
he's still fighting it.
That's the most telling part of it, is like, he felt comfortable enough to fight. Like, even with all of that.
Well, he had the support. He had the support of the president. Yeah, I mean, like, at the time, you look at how to support the president. And it's crazy because you saw, like, a thing like that 10 years ago would have completely ruined him. Yeah, I mean, like, if it had come out on
2
the
years
same
ago,
scale,
it would have ruined somebody.
But it's a completely different political environment where these types of things are like, you're met with so many things on a daily. Every morning I wake up, there's a new headline.
People have
so wild that when you see a headline like that, it's in the realm of
it's
normalcy.
It's normalized. And I tell people, Trump has affected the DNA of American politics in ways like radiation. And you won't know how it's mutated till years down the road, because something that would have ended any normal political career, he'll have 5 of those in one day sometimes.
And he's plugging in these very conservative judges all around the country. And if the people that are saying like, oh, well, he's not getting a lot of legislation through or whatever, whatever. Like, look at these appointments, man. We are going to be in the fucking in the Stone Age for quite some time.
Let me speak to your point. Exactly. The Supreme Court now has a permanent right of center bent, and they're lifetime appointments. So let's say there's a progressive revolution, and we get the president, House, and Senate with veto-proof majorities, and we pass all this great legislation. Guess where everything ends up?
The Supreme
Court. And let's put it this way: Obamacare would not have survived under the current Supreme Court the way it did the one a couple years ago when it was that life or death case. And it's like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I want people to be aware of how badly the Republicans have won and the damage that they are doing. At this point, they're probably just going to say, we're going to mess up as much stuff as we can in 2018. And because the wave's coming, they know that. And it's like, who cares? We got the Supreme Court now. We've got the tax reform that we've wanted since Reagan. Hey, what more do you want?
Yeah, they came in, and that's what a lot of people didn't understand in the first election, because you're looking at the average voter, and the average voter isn't looking at, Supreme Court appointment, judges and how, and it's like, oh, well, it's not going to be that big of a deal, and you're right in a sense that, like, the president in and of itself, that office alone doesn't have that much of an effect on a day-to-day. But when you're talking about appointments and the fact that it came at such a crucial time when you had, and that's why, like, you're looking at, Ruth. Yeah, I mean, she's holding on, because if she goes, that's a whole nother seat.
That's then you're talking 30 years of fighting for birth control, 30 years of unions' right to organize. The impossibility of Citizens United, which was a limited money, ever being repealed, because they will have set the knob to conservative, and they've broken it off, and there's nothing they can do about it, because these are lifetime appointments, and no matter what legislation is passed, it always ends up at the Supreme Court.
Man, we got so much. I mean, we might have to strap in just a little bit, but we want to get back some of the guest questions or whatever, some of the viewer questions. Ime Alaquiva, shout out to Ime. He was on there earlier. Yeah, your mom's house.
Your mom's house is in jeopardy if you go with this legislation.
So, gentrification, huge, a huge issue. And you're looking at Braddock and the East Shore Initiative, and
let me just say, I know there's some questions about East Shore. I had no involvement in East Shore. I'm not involved in it at all. I don't use the moniker, and I don't agree. I don't agree with the moniker. So, to anyone that would ask that, so that's I just want to be clear, because people asked about that.
Yeah, because everybody's asking, and like, I don't fully.
I mean, I'm the guy that has the town zip code on my arm, and it's like these are the identities to me are the most some of the most historic and valuable things, and it's like I wouldn't. But the people that are behind it didn't come from a bad place, and they're good people that they wanted to try to take something on. But from my standpoint, I wasn't involved. I don't use it, and I don't think it's going to stick, primarily because there wasn't the kind of grassroots involvement that was needed, and we don't need that kind of help. It's like I love these communities. Yeah, because these are the places that I love. Swissvale, Rankin, Brad. I mean, they have their own identities. So I just want people to be clear that was something that was done not out of malice or anything. It was just, but it's something that I wasn't involved with.
So the question: how do you work with realtors from outside of the community of Braddock to work within your agenda as the mayor? So, like, how much
we don't work with realtors specifically. It's like our biggest challenge when people ask about gentrification is that I said this to Anthony Bourdain, asked it to my face. I said, well, our issues aren't gentrification. Our issues were wholesale abandonment. When 90% of the people leave, it's not about displacing anybody. And every good thing that's come back into Braddock in the last 12 years has never displaced anything. It's all gone into abandoned, derelict, or vacant buildings that didn't have anything involved in. So from my standpoint, a community like mine isn't a gentrification play, and probably never will be. And when you see communities like Duquesne or McKeesport or Clareton, these are the places where the wheels have come off, and those are the places that scare me, because I'm worried that can they ever be brought back more into the economic mainstream? So from my perspective, that's a big reason why I'm running is to champion these places.
So then what do you do? How do you combat that, the abandonment? How do you combat that? Because like,
that's the thing. And that's
if I'm an old head and you offer me, $75,000 for my house, that's going to be worth $200,000 in a week.
But see, the thing is that even though they're 10 miles apart, it couldn't be different in East Liberty versus McKeesport,
Right.
like, and if anyone has, the last time anyone's been, and I'm not running McKeesport, I love Tube City, but it's just, they're facing a level of distress there that is as severe as it gets in the state. So the issues that are facing the Valley, let's say, are vastly different than the ones facing, say, an East Liberty or a Lawrenceville in terms of people being displaced, people, being pushed out, that kind of a thing.
Yeah, I mean, they were closing high rises. I guess from just a civilian standpoint, it almost feels like, well, money talks. You know what I mean? Like, what we gonna do? Money talks.
Trying to strike a balance. It's tough in some of those. But I mean, it didn't take a genius to figure out you were going to have a flashpoint when you're tearing down housing for elderly, disabled folks to build an even bigger Whole Foods. I mean, like you couldn't get a central. You couldn't order one from Central Casting more than that. And those are the kind of issues that are growing pains of a community. That is being gentrified, but the ones that scare me are the communities where, like, what can you do for these places? How many college graduates are saying, I've got my eye on a fixer-upper in Clareton, or any of these other places, and those are the places that have the greatest source of personal heartbreak now, where you see with the opioids and you see the unraveling of the social contract that really built these places up last century. Now it's completely coming down, and again, coming from where we were at in Braddock, 90% of our population's gone. It's never been about gentrifying. It's about finding people that are willing to invest in your community and are willing to believe in the community that it can get better and it needs to get better, and there's a moral imperative to make it better.
So let's do some little rapid fire. I mean, kind of, because we got a lot. We
didn't mean to turn this into like a CNN interview. And I feel like Chris Cuomo. Have you seen the shift in because when Trump first started running, it was like they kind of had a relationship and they were friends or whatever, and then all of a sudden he just like, yo, fuck everything, Trump. I'm gonna attack anybody on here who wears a red tie. Like, I'm like, God damn, Chris.
and I think it's crazy because we we want to thank you for coming on. You were one of the biggest guests that we had on, the first biggest guest, and you've come back on. I mean, this is the third time here. This is our third year here, and we love seeing. How
long does it take for me to get back to you when you DM me?
Yeah. It's right.
I've been looking forward to this.
I DM folks, and I'll get like weeks of, and then it's the same thing. Even the first time I had ever reached out to you, like I was like, I don't know if I'm ever going to get a chance. I sent out an email, and then that next day I got an email
I'm
back.
waiting
So
for
it's
the Fetterman campaign ad that's to down in the DM by Yo Gotti. You got a commercial just set to down in the DM. That's gonna be dope. We want to be in that commercial. I just want you to know that.
And the thing is that like you have we've been, and like the interviews have been different. And like we've grown, the podcast has grown, and they're always a little different. And like with this, in this atmosphere, it seems like we're not gonna get a runner for lieutenant governor on here this year. Some of these issues are like have been pressing or whatever. You're the guy to ask, and like in that position. So we're just fortunate enough.
The people talk.
No, I'm always AMA, and whatever. I'm happy to talk about whatever.
So they've definitely AMA'd, and some of these. So the one. So what's your razor situation? And as a bald dude, I want to know that too. What's your razor situation?
You got to go with the Gillette Cool Edge or whatever, the 5-blade thing. Like for somebody that shaves my head every other day, like you can't go disposable because you will hack your head to pieces, and it's outrageous that these blades are like $350 a piece. Like it's crazy to me. But if you don't, like you literally, you're it's just like divot. The rash and everything.
I'm
you got to go
blaze deep right now.
Blade initiative.
Blade
initiative on the table at the house called Cut the Shit.
Like razor blades shouldn't have anti-theft systems on them, but the reason they do because they cost $4 a piece, and people, but
I gotta go in the pharmacy.
yeah, it's
Like you got the lock, you gotta go behind the it's behind
And
there
they
with
got
the
an attitude when they gotta do it because like this ain't even pharmaceutical.
yeah,
Like,
it's back there with the opiates,
exactly,
and the condoms.
And Gillette knows they got a thing there because that's why they're able to get away with it. And every time I've tried, I'm like, and I pay for it the next day. So
I'm the same way, man. As soon as I went up to I started out with 3. I started out with 1, and then once I went to the head, it started with 3 blades, and it was 4, and it was 5, and then and I was like, you know what, man? This is like EMB, like some toothpaste or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I've been brushing my teeth all day. I ain't gonna need this. I tried to drop back down to 2 blades.
no, it ain't happening.
No,
I'm telling you,
sir.
that's what I'm saying.
No, sir.
You turn your head into hamburger, and then you realize why you pay $4 a blade, and you don't want to, but like if you don't, you pay the price.
You know what I found though? It has helped me in the cause or whatever. Conditioner. You know what I mean? I don't pay separate for like shaving cream or whatever, but conditioner is a great shaving.
I mean, maybe I've always been an Edge gel guy. Like I've tried cheaper ones, but if you rub it in there, it works. I have to admit it works.
I just want to take the time to thank my granddad for having a full head of hair when he busted nut.
Yeah.
He had a full head of hair when he busted nut.
Your dad still got a hairline and everything too, so you got that.
Here's the thing: my granddad's hairline might be stronger than his son's, and that's weird. Like my dad, he's starting to fade a little bit. My granddad,
well, they say hairline skip a generation, so you probably got your granddad hairline for a while.
80 years old, still getting fades.
Yeah, no, I don't remember what it's like to have hair at this point, but you got to use a good razor, and if you don't, man, life's tough.
Boxers are brief, man. You wear a lot of shorts. You're a loose kind of guy.
I'm a both.
Who's
boxer
this is
briefs.
Kenny Wolf. Kenny Wolf boxers are briefs.
The boxer briefs. Yeah, the
boxer briefs.
Yeah,
I like that. I like a boxer brief. See, like I like a.
It's the best of both worlds. It's the best of both worlds.
Keeps it in checks, but it keeps you cool and wicks away and like. Yeah,
I mean, I'm not gonna ever entertain a conversation about a man's draw.
Yeah,
Kenny Wolf.
I can't say I may and then say no, but I agree with you. I'm like, I don't want to talk about underwear.
How do you plan to use the Infinity Gauntlet? And for those that are at home,
somebody tweeted me that said I look like the new villain from
Thanos.
Avengers.
You're big dude. You've got
all I can do is laugh. I mean, it's like I was at the farm show yesterday, and I was walking, and there was a little girl. She's maybe 3 years old, and she was, she was back from her mother, and her mother looked back at me and snatched her up like I was the guy from Jeepers Creepers. I was going to fly off with her. I get judged on my appearance. In fact, I've had a lot of people tell me that they actually use my picture in a presentation on bias, where they're like, look at this guy and tell me what you think, and then they say, oh, by the way, he went to Harvard and he's a mayor, blah blah blah.
I'm happy you said that, because when you sit and you get those slides or whatever in a training or something, I don't think those shits are true, but okay, those are real.
Yeah, no, I've had literally probably 18 people tell me, hey, I saw your face I'm used in a training from all over that it's subconscious bias, and they have this and it's like, I get that, and it's just something that I have to live with, and it's like no big deal, but I do notice it, and I always have to be aware of it, because somebody will look at me and think whatever.
And that's what I think that's the intrinsic issue with politics outside of the money aspect. It's like, why don't you want someone to look like someone who represents you? Why don't you want them to look like you?
Yeah, well, everyone's like, are you going to wear a suit? Are you going to wear a suit? I'm like, why? If me putting on a suit, like, I'm still who I am. I still my education. I still believe what I believe. But if you seeing me in a suit matters, I'm like, okay, whatever. So it really just comes down
to get
to
away from that as a country.
So
we have who, if you win this seat, who would you place? Who would you recommend as mayor of Braddock?
Well, I mean,
outside of myself, because
that responsibility would lay with the council. And if I am lucky enough to be chosen as our next lieutenant governor, they would select and pick somebody. So I would have no vote in that. I would have no say in that. So, like, I'm not handpicking a successor or anything like that. But I want to emphasize, people are like, well, what's going to happen or whatever, and I'm like, there's plenty of great people there that can step up, but B, I'm not moving. I'm not leaving. I'm still going to operate that as my base, because if I didn't, it would be a betrayal of the things that I hold dear. And it's like these places across Pennsylvania matter, and you need to have an advocate and a champion for those kind of places. So the Lieutenant Governor has a mansion in outside of Harrisburg at Fort Indian Town Gap, and I would not reside in it. I would never live in it because. Why should I live in a nicer house than any of you all that voted me in office?
Can we throw shows there?
He said, yeah. Well, maybe you guys can live there. The new permanent home of the podcast.
Because we're about to do a real push for Lieutenant Governor. We're about to start throwing all types of BYOB shows. We'll get the legality.
But yeah, we'll work that out later. But I mean. But as a taxpayer, you shouldn't be paying for a swimming pool for the lieutenant governor's mansion. That's insane. And it's not an important point from a budget of $29 billion for PA, but it still matters, and the optics matter. And my home base is Braddock, and it always will be, regardless of what office, higher office I occupy.
And this is the last question. Comes from a Giselle Fetterman. It's crazy how we have two Fettermans that their favorite podcast is Drinking Partners. I don't know if you know this woman or not. It's such a common name, Fetterman. But she asks,
it's just crazy. Like, you can't go nowhere and be visible. Your wife is on it. Right? Don't ever think that you just out here. Your wife don't know what the hell you're doing. She knows.
She asks, is he ever going to master the art of putting down the toilet seat?
Yeah, I know. And I saw that when I was actually sitting out in my truck waiting to come in, and I saw that. I'm like, thanks, honey, for that.
Don't you hate when they take
too much information?
Yeah,
exactly.
You know what I mean? Personal issues.
I like hashtag boundaries, honey. You know what I mean?
This is us, babe. Right?
But so I have a lot of I have work to do on that. Let's put it that way, and I'm going to try to do better.
Raise the toilet seat after you use it.
Exactly.
I'm next. After you use it, I'm next. Why don't you raise it?
It's equality. If you put it up, I put it down. Then we're sharing responsibility.
Plus, he's tall as hell. That toilet seat down by his ankles. I have a bad back.
If every time I use it, you put it up, and every time you use it, you put it down, that's equality. And guess what? When I poop, everybody wins. Yeah. There it is. Celebrate the poops. So equality and poops.
I didn't want to end it like that. It's grassroots movement.
You talk about grassroots as
when you get a politician who's grassroots, talk about everything. All right, we might be at the governor's mansion having a whole poop versus whatever the fuck they said. Have a whole discussion. But we want to thank you for coming out, man.
I want to thank you guys for having me.
Always a good time. Always great conversation. I learned a lot here.
Yeah.
I feel like you usher in, you make it comfortable for someone who is not, quote unquote, into politics to start paying attention, because I think a lot of not being into politics is like, I might be too late. Like, everybody knows so much who's into it. I don't know shit.
Actually, and a lot of people that practice politics don't know enough.
Have you seen the president?
But I mean, it's
This thing's selling trips to a golf course. He is not the president.
I just hope people do get engaged, because you are the leader of our country is literally taunting an unstable nuclear power on Twitter.
Yeah.
I mean, think of how far we've come in less than a calendar year. He hasn't even been in office a calendar year yet, and he's literally taunting an unstable nuclear power on Twitter, like literally getting in how big's your compared to mine, kind of, and it's these are strange days.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is legit crazy.
Yeah, out crazying crazy is a dangerous brinkmanship.
He's not going out crazy,
and that's why we all need to be engaged, because I don't care how red you are, if you're not appalled by that, you're not a patriot. That's my take on it.
You're not a human at this point. I mean, we're looking at the sanctity of the earth. I mean, when you're talking about my nuclear button, like, everybody should be concerned.
You can't out crazy a motherfucker, and you got the checks and balance system. This motherfucker don't have a checks and balance.
And be clear on that. Like, exactly, the president doesn't have a check when it comes to that.
Yeah,
and
most of our wars are, unilaterally from that office,
and it's horrifying. I mean, again, it's horrifying. And so from my standpoint, if that's not enough to motivate you to get involved, nothing that's going to come out of my mouth is going to do it, because, to me, I have outrage fatigue, but I keep going on because if you don't, they want you to give up, and it's like we can't.
I think again, I appreciate your grassroots movement. I think you in line with a lot of what we're talking about is that, like, sometimes we do feel powerless on a national scale. You see these things happening, but local politics matter. I mean, like, who is running your cities, who's running your county.
Cities are the safe haven against a lot of these crazy national policies. So you get to push back. And I also put a plug in for my good friend Josh Shapiro, who's the Attorney General. And he has filed a lot of lawsuits to kind of stop a lot of net neutrality and predatory student loan practice. A lot of these issues are stopped through litigation. Birth control, his appeal stopped them from deleting birth control coverage as part of Obamacare. So my good friend Josh Shapiro, who's there are clusters of progressivism, and we need to spread out. But I also want people to understand that if you're not involved now, man, you're not paying attention.
Well, if someone wants to get involved and they're interested in seeing what goes on with the lieutenant governor and looking at the race and supporting you, where can they find you?
Yeah, well, I'm as you guys pointed out, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, johnfetterman.com. We had a great fundraising. We have, again, 3,000 donors, 3,800 contributions, and most of our money raised online through folks that for $40, that matters. That means something to them. And God bless them, and I wouldn't want it any other way.
All right, Dave, let them know where they can find us.
Oh, man, you can find us at the Arcade Comedy Theater every third Saturday of the month. You can find us at the Comptra Theater every fourth Saturday of the month.
A little bit,
2018.
Okay.
First of 2018.
New year, new me, this motherfucker.
Third Saturday of the month, every month at Arcade Comedy Theater. Fourth Saturday of the month at Comptra Theater. You can also catch us, here at Partners Pod. You can find us on iTunes.
He wasn't ready. Look, he wasn't ready. Find us on the internet.
Find us online.
Google Drinking Partners.
At epicastnetwork.com/partnerspod. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Libsyn, and Google Play under Drinking Partners. You can find us on IG, Twitter, and Facebook at PartnersPod.
Hey, we want to again thank John Fetterman for coming out, hanging with us. Hopefully we talk to him again, and hopefully he'll be the
I want to keep at least my 2.2% of your content rating. So have me back, have me back, and if I am lucky enough to win, I always will want to come back. So
I'm definitely looking forward to interviewing the lieutenant governor. They're talking about everything in that office, and then when we throw our show at the mansion that you're not using, you don't even got to furnish that motherfucker. Like, just what that party gonna be lit. And as always, Drinking Partners is the crew. Epicast is the family, and we out.
Actually, this is 4.
Oh yeah,
we did the 100.
Yes,
we did Brew Gentlemen. We did Brew Gentlemen. We did a studio. We did the 100, and then this.